His lawyer leaned in, lips almost touching Vincent's ear, and whispered 5 words, just 5. And that smug, self-satisfied face I'd stared at across the breakfast table for 15 years went completely white. His hands, the same hands that used to trace my spine at night, started trembling so violently the divorce papers fluttered like dead leaves in a storm. And me, for the first time in 3 brutal years, I smiled. A slow, real, bone-deep smile. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. You need to understand how we got here. How a woman the entire world thought had lost her mind actually played the longest, coldest, most patient game of revenge in her life. My name is Alexis Dunst. I'm 34 years old. Until 3 months ago I was married to Vincent Mercer, the man everyone called the king of local real estate. 15 years of marriage. That's longer than most Hollywood couples survive. Longer than some countries have been independent. And definitely longer than my patience should have lasted. But I'm stubborn. I get it from my grandmother. She used to say, "Baby girl, never let a man think he owns the chessboard, especially when you're the one who taught him how to play." I met Vincent when I was 17. Fresh out of high school early, not because I was a genius, but because I was desperate to escape my parents' house. I started as a file clerk at Henderson and Price law firm. Minimum wage, paper cuts that felt like tiny betrayals every single day, but it was mine. By 18, I was a legal assistant. I was good with details, good with numbers, and excellent at keeping my mouth shut and my eyes wide open. Vincent was 24, charming, ambitious, dripping with future. He said he was going to build an empire. I said I'd help him file the paperwork. Soft laugh romance, right? We got married at 19. Tyler came at 20. I kept working part-time at the firm, building my own 401k, saving every spare dollar, my grandmother's voice whispering in my head. A woman should always have her own money, not secret money. Just hers, something nobody can take. At 23, Vincent's business finally exploded. He asked me to quit the firm and run everything for him. Baby, I need someone I can trust completely. So I became his unpaid everything: bookkeeper, office manager, client wrangler, interior decorator, marketing genius, event planner, mother, wife, chef, therapist, you name it. I did it all while raising our son, and somehow keeping a smile on my face. For 11 years, I poured my soul into his dream. And for 11 years, he collected every single ounce of credit. At every gala, I was just Vincent's wife. Every award speech, he thanked his team, his mentors. His vision somehow never quite got around to thanking the woman who actually made it all run. Somewhere along the way, the mask slipped. He started making $1 million decisions without me, started staying late at the office, started criticizing the way I dressed, the meals I cooked, my lack of ambition. Lack of ambition. I was running his entire empire for free while raising his child. Then, 3 months ago, on a random Tuesday, he came home while I was making his favorite dinner, because apparently I'm a glutton for punishment. He sat me down at our kitchen table, looked me dead in the eyes and said, calm as ordering takeout, "I want a divorce. I want the house, the cars, the business, everything. You can keep Tyler." He said it like our 15-year-old son was leftover pizza. I just stared at him, salt shaker, butter dish. 15 years, and this was how it ended. What I didn't know in that moment, what I wouldn't discover until later, was that Vincent had been planning his exit for months. He already had Harold Whitfield, the most expensive shark in the city, on retainer. While I was meal prepping and scheduling his dentist appointments, he was building his escape hatch. The next day, his mother Lorraine showed up. The same woman who'd treated me like the hired help for 15 years. Perfectly styled hair, perfectly practiced sympathy face. She patted my hand and said, You should have tried harder to keep him happy, dear. Men have needs. Lorraine giving marriage advice was hilarious considering her husband spent 7 days a week on the golf course just to avoid breathing the same air as her. That first week was hell. Vincent moved me into the guest room. My walk-in closet became 2 sad little sections he graciously allowed me to keep. The message was loud and clear. This house isn't yours anymore. 2 weeks later, he started parading Brittany Sawyer around. 27, worked at his company, Instagram, perfect body. Yoga pants that cost more than my weekly groceries. She wore my grandmother's apron while making smoothies in my blender, in my kitchen. Vincent would put his arm around her right in front of me, like I was already a ghost. He canceled my credit cards one by one, then suggested I should probably find somewhere else to live while we sort things out. My own house. Lorraine came over to help me pack. She went through my belongings like a customs officer and decided what I was allowed to keep. My grandmother's recipe box, she actually hesitated. Everything else of value, jewelry, furniture, memories, those were marital assets. She packed my life into black garbage bags. Like trash, the only person I thought I could trust was my best friend of 20 years, Diane Holloway. She brought wine, let me cry on her shoulder, told me Vincent was making the biggest mistake of his life. Until I realized she was feeding him every single thing I said. My best friend had been in love with my husband for 15 years, and he used her like a spy. But the knife that really went in was Tyler. My beautiful, smart 15-year-old son watched his father poison him against me day after day. Your mom is making this so difficult. I just want everyone to be happy. I watched my own child start looking at me like I was the villain. That was the moment I knew I wasn't going to fight fair. I was going to win. 3 years earlier, long before any divorce talk, I had discovered the truth. One random Tuesday night, Vincent was working late again. I was reconciling the company books like I did every month. And I found a transfer, then another, then a pattern. I stayed up until 3 a.m., digging like a woman possessed. What I found made my blood freeze. The house we all thought we owned outright had 3 mortgages, $1 million owed on a $850K property. We were underwater by $250,000, the business almost $500,000 in debt, leased cars, crypto losses, gambling. A secret apartment for a woman I didn't know about. We looked rich the same way a mannequin looks alive, convincing from 20 feet away, completely hollow up close. My first instinct was to scream, to confront him, to burn it all down, but then I heard my grandmother's voice again. Never let them see you coming, baby. So instead of confronting him, I became the perfect wife. I smiled at dinner parties knowing our entire life was built on quicksand. I documented everything, every loan, every hidden account, every transaction. I moved my inheritance and my IRA into an irrevocable trust for Tyler. Untouchable, and then I waited. 3 years of patience so cold it could freeze hell itself. When Vincent finally served me divorce papers and demanded everything, I almost laughed out loud in his face. He wasn't asking for assets, he was begging for debt, and he had no idea. I walked into my lawyer Nina Castellano's office and dropped 3 binders on her desk. 3 years of evidence. She read in silence for almost an hour. When she finally looked up, the pity in her eyes had turned into something like awe. Mrs. Dunst, you're not a victim, you're a goddamn grandmaster. The next 3 months I gave the performance of a lifetime. I showed up to mediation with red eyes and shaking hands. I asked for almost nothing, $50, 0, and shared custody. I let everyone think I was broken. Vincent grew cocky, bought a $15.00 watch with company money, paraded Brittany through my house. Let her paint my sage. Green kitchened gray, whispers gray, like her future once she found out the truth. Diane kept calling, fishing for information. I fed her exactly what Vincent needed to hear. She thought she was playing me. She was just the free courier service delivering my trap. Tyler started noticing the cracks. New watch, but can't afford the school trip. Shopping bags everywhere, but money's tight. One night in my tiny apartment, he looked at me with those serious eyes and asked, "Mom, is Dad actually rich?" I squeezed his hand. "Trust me, baby. Just wait a little longer." 2 weeks before the final hearing, Vincent's own lawyer begged for a financial audit. Vincent shut it down instantly. "Brittany wants this done. No more delays." Harold made him sign a waiver acknowledging he was refusing an audit against counsel's advice. Vincent signed without reading it. Soft, dangerous laugh. Never underestimate what an impatient side piece can do for your legal strategy. The night before the hearing, Vincent texted me, "Thank you for not making this ugly." I stared at that message for a long time, then replied, "I just want what's best for Tyler." And I did. Thursday, April 17th, Courtroom 4B. I remember the smell of old wood and floor polish. The way sunlight cut across the mahogany table like a blade. Vincent walked in wearing the charcoal Armani suit I helped him pick out 3 years earlier. New watch glittering. Smug smile locked in place. Brittany waited in the hallway like a shiny trophy. Lorraine sat in the gallery wearing her "I always knew she was weak" face. I wore a simple navy dress, no jewelry, hair in a low bun. I looked exhausted, defeated, perfect. Judge Patricia Holden entered. Silver hair, 30 years on the bench, she'd seen every trick in the book. Harold stood. "My client is assuming all marital assets in exchange for Mrs. Dunst receiving $50,000. Nina confirmed. The judge looked straight at me. "Mrs. Dunst, you're giving up the house, the business, everything you helped build. Are you certain this is what you want?" I kept my voice soft, trembling just enough. "Yes, Your Honor. I just want my husband to have everything he asked for." Page after page of documents. Vincent signed eagerly, barely glancing. I signed slowly, savoring every stroke of the pen. Then Harold reached the addendum. The liability disclosure statement. I watched his face change, color drained, eyes widened. He leaned over and whispered, voice cracking, "Sir, we need to talk." Vincent waved him off. "Not now. We're almost done." Harold's voice became urgent. "You're assuming all the debt, all of it, $1. $9 million. The house is underwater. The business is insolvent." For the first time, Vincent actually read what he'd signed. I watched the exact moment his world imploded. His face went the color of ash, hands shaking so hard the papers rattled. He shot up, chair screeching. "This is fraud. She hid this from me." Judge Holden's voice cut like a whip. "Sit down, Mr. Mercer." Harold produced the waiver Vincent had signed without reading. The one that said, in crystal, clear legalese, he had refused an audit against counsel's strong advice. The judge read it, looked at Vincent like he was a child who just broken his own toy. "You were advised, you declined, you signed, the agreement stands." Vincent turned to me, voice breaking. You knew about all of it." I met his eyes for the first time in months and said, calm as still water, "I was your bookkeeper for 11 years, Vincent. I knew about everything." His face cycled through every emotion imaginable: rage, betrayal, terror, and finally settled on the one I had waited 3 years to see. Pure, devastating realization. He had done this to himself. He begged the judge to let him withdraw the agreement. Judge Holden brought the gavel down so hard the sound cracked like thunder. "Mrs. Dunst, you have your settlement." Mr. Mercer, you have the assets and all associated liabilities. This marriage is dissolved. I stood up, smoothed my dress, picked up my purse. I looked at him one last time, slumped in his chair, papers scattered, empire in ruins, and said quietly, "You told me you wanted everything except Tyler. I gave you exactly what you asked for." I walked out of that courtroom without looking back. In the hallway, I heard him screaming at Harold. I saw Brittany's face through the glass doors the exact second she realized she hadn't hooked a successful businessman, she'd hooked a bankrupt liar. She was gone before I reached the elevator, heels clicking like gunshots on marble. I stepped outside into April sunshine. Blue sky, warm air. Behind me, my ex-husband was having a meltdown. Ahead of me was a life that was finally, completely mine. The collapse was poetic. 2 weeks later, Brittany packed in the middle of the night and left a note. "This isn't what I signed up for." The gray kitchen sat empty. 1 month later, the house went into short sale. 2 months, business defaulted, vendors suing, credit frozen. 3 months, Vincent was in bankruptcy court. The man who once bragged about his empire was now begging family members for loans. Diane called me crying. I had no idea. "I'm so sorry." I let her cry, then hung up. Some friendships don't deserve a second chance. Lorraine tried through Tyler. Tyler looked his grandmother dead in the eyes and said, "Mom's busy building her life. She doesn't have time for excuses." One night, about a month after the divorce, Tyler sat at my second-hand kitchen table in our tiny apartment with the sage green walls. "You waited 3 years, he whispered. "You knew everything and you just waited." I pulled him into my arms and felt him hug me back, really hug me the way he hadn't since he was little. 15-year-old boys don't usually hug their moms voluntarily. That hug told me I'd done everything right. My $50,000 settlement bought stability. I enrolled in interior design classes, the dream I'd shelved at 23 to build his empire. My first client was a 52-year-old woman fresh out of a 28-year marriage. She stood in her empty apartment and asked me, voice cracking, "How do you start over?" I smiled and said, "One room at a time, one color at a time, one day at a time." We painted her kitchen sage green. She cried happy tears, "The color of new beginnings," she whispered. 3 months after the divorce, Vincent showed up at my door. Gaunt, wrinkled suit, watch gone, eyes hollow, he could barely speak. "I didn't know it was this bad. I made mistakes. Maybe we can figure something out." I leaned against the doorframe and looked at the man I had once loved more than life itself. "You asked for everything except Tyler," I said softly. "You got exactly what you wanted." Then I closed the door. I watched through the peephole while eating ice cream as he stood there for 10 full minutes. "Best show I've ever seen. 5 stars, would watch again." That night I sat in my quiet little living room. Grandmother's photo on the shelf, her recipe box beside it, the one thing Lorraine almost stole. I whispered to her picture, "You were right about everything, Grandma. Keep your own money, know your worth, and never, ever let anyone make you feel small." The apartment was tiny. Nothing like the house I'd lived in for 15 years, but every paint color, every piece of furniture, every decision was mine. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was free. If this story gave you that sweet, sweet rush of justice, smash that like button. Subscribe for more stories where the good guy, or in this case, the patient woman, finally wins. Drop your own revenge story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want another tale that will leave you screaming at the screen, click the next video right now. See you in the next one where the revenge is even sweeter.